Hello, I'm Dr. Kimberly Douglas, and I am the chief contributor to the Substack, The Learning Landscape, where we are mapping 21st century learning. Today, I'm going to talk about world building, and I'm inspired to have this conversation by some things I've seen on social media this week, particularly on TikTok, people branding themselves as world builders, or people saying that the new thing isn't going, the next thing isn't going to be about being a content creator and putting out content and posting videos, but about being a world builder. And I'm still trying to understand what they mean by this. I suspect it's some combination of being a curator, an integrator, bringing people from different spaces together in a single space to have conversations. So it sounds more global, right? It sounds like a world, but I'm still checking things out. I'm talking about world building is something that I talk about frequently. And if you go back through past subs, I know I have here on Substack, talked about world building, even if it's inside of a post about something else. But I certainly have talked about world building multiple times on TikTok. And when I think of the word world building, so this could be a fictional world or a non-fictional world in writing, in videos, in games, video games, and other types of games, tabletop role play games, any work of art, or even within a painting, a music, what is the world that you are trying to construct? And so you may be wondering, how does that relate to the learning landscape? So this learning landscape exists in a world of values, of hopes, of dreams, of ambitions. And so it's important to think about you as a curriculum builder, as a systems builder. What are you trying to build here? What kind of world are you trying to construct? So you can construct worlds, you can talk about what you want to build, but we can also, from a research standpoint, we can deconstruct. If we want to know how we got to the place where we are today, look at the world we have right in front of us and walk it backwards. This world is the design that lived in somebody's imagination at one point in time. So whatever you like about the world, whatever you don't like about the world, this lived, all these facets and features lived in someone's imagination, whether it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 200 years ago, 400 years ago. This lived in somebody's imagination. So I want you to think about that for yourself. And as you build curricula, you build systems, that you are engaging in world building. I entered this conversation in talking about tabletop role play games, which is something that is still a special interest of mine. And since then, it's just really made me think about how I show up as a researcher, as a deconstructor, constructor, how I show up as a designer, builder, and everything in between. So just think about the world that you are imagining, the curricula that you build, the designs that you make. All of these things are world building. They are creating this place that people may inhabit physically, or they may just inhabit mentally. If you're writing a story, or if you're painting a picture, whatever you're doing, this is a space where you expect you or someone else to inhabit that space. So curriculum building, systems building is not without its impacts and its consequences. You are engaging in world building. So that's what we'll talk about this week. I am taking some guidance from this book. It's called 30 Days of World Building. And I think the intention for this book has to do with writing stories or developing games, but I think it is quite useful here. This isn't something that I don't have an affiliate link or anything for that, which would be perfectly fine if I did. Um, and if you do affiliate links, this may be a book and you're interested in world building, you may want to get an affiliate link for this. So certainly want to support people who are doing that and using that as a means to make a living. But it just so happens that this is not something that I have an affiliate link for. It's just a book that I really like and often refer to at times where I least expect it. So as I'm thinking about world building, I'm just going to take you through a few things that are in this book and just blow these out or connect these points to our conversation about the learning landscape. So this is 30 Days of World Building, second edition, an author's step-by-step guide to building fictional worlds. And this is by A. Trevina. I think her name is Angelina. I know I found her on TikTok. This was written in 2022. I'm going to go through the table of contents just to let you know what's in this book, give you just for context. So using this book, she talks about the world building basics, genre and setting, draw your map, water sources. Let me pause here and say I'm talking about this on two levels. Number one, because I want you to think at a high level about how you are building worlds. So that's one thing. But at another level, listen to this table of contents and think about how you may use world building basics in a specific course or a specific lessons. So genre and setting, draw your map, water sources, landscape, natural resources, capital, sapient species, food, farmed animals, natural predators, climate and seasons, trade routes and travel, important trade towns, government structure, education, which I'll zoom in on in just a moment, law and order, economics, family groups, gender roles, employment, class divides and social mobility, religious and spiritual belief structure, magic, festivals and celebrations, technology, medicine, weaponry and war, wars and their impact, social change and revolution, and other historic events. Then there's a section here, a word on info dumping and learning curves, and then idea dumps page, some notes pages. I'm going to go into the education part in more detail and actually just read from that section. Before I do that, I'm going to introduce you to another book by the same author. Let me step back. This is How to Map Your World. And again, I want you to think about this at a high level of how you are world building, how you are mapping things out, how you are mapping learning, mapping a system of learning for someone. So think about it at that level, but also there are some tools here that you can use in specific courses, specific lessons, modules. So this is How to Map Your World, an author's guide to mapping fictional worlds, A. Trevina. And these are about fictional worlds, but we engage in world mapping every single day. Okay, so to read you a few things from here in terms of world building. While fantasy and science fiction authors may be doing the heavy lifting when creating their fictional worlds, world building exists in pretty much every genre to a certain extent. Whether it's the creation of an imaginary cafe in a real town or imagining an alternative outcome to an event from history, any book of any kind can involve world building. At the fantasy, sci-fi, and horror end of the scale, the world building heavyweights, it may mean the creation of a magic system or monsters to slot alongside the world, or it may mean building an entirely new world with new species and cultures right up to an entire universe of planets. So just a little bit about the world building basics. And then different types of world building. So building a whole new fictional world. You can build a real place with alternative past or future. You can build a real place with a parallel fictional world. And then you can build real stuff in real life, right? Okay. And here's the section I really want to get to. This is on education. So what the author suggests, the way the table of contents is set up is to get you, instead of you trying to go in and build, this is a great book for a group project, by the way. If you are doing if you have any kind of formal or informal learning program, I talked about informal learning last week, in after school programs, Girl Scouts, through nonprofits, the type of engagement that is not connected to a grade, not connected to a formal educational institution. This is a great thing to do in an after school program or Girl Scouts program, because what the author does is she takes you through, they take you through how many days of this? 30 days. And each day, so all the things I listed in the table of contents, each day is for each item in that table of contents. Day 15 is about education, and I'm going to read here and just do a little bit of ad lib. Education It's both formal and informal. Informally, we learn how to walk, how to tie our shoelaces. We learn the social norms for the culture in which we live. We learn how to get over a broken heart, how to make a cup of tea, how to change a tire. Informal education happens in our entire lives. Hold on, let me read it again. Informal education happens our entire lives through imitation, advice, and the hard lessons of personal experience. Okay, so again, the context here is about fictional works, but world building is real life stuff. World building is what we do every single day. Formal education teaches us how to read and write, how to add and subtract, the water cycle, how gravity works. It can teach us a trade, how to pass an exam, or how to cook a four-course meal. Again, formal education can take place at any time in our lives, but the bulk of it happens in childhood. Are the children in your world formally educated? So in your imaginary world is what she's referring to. Formally educated in institutions such as schools, or are they educated at homes? This is a question we can ask about real life. Does it make sense for children to be educated in institutions such as schools, or are they educated at home? At what age does their formal education begin, and at what age does it end? Think about all the stages: school, college, universities. And then you can go even deeper than that. Think about whether the education needs to be mixed age. So having kids who are 9 also learning alongside people who are 14. Think about what it means for adult learners. Professional studies where people have lots of work experience. Think about how all these in the 2000s and earlier, there's a lot of development in libraries and library literature about learning commons and having open spaces where people can work together. Does your learning space look like that? Or is it closed offices? Or if it's one big open space and then one closed office where people can go decompress? You also need to consider who is offered an education and what kind of education is offered to whom. Is education equally accessible by the rich and poor, both girls and boys, both in rural and urban communities? Is it open to every religion, culture, race, species? Perhaps schools are separated by some of these things, and maybe different educations and different standards of education are taught to each demographic. And we know that that is the case. So when we talk about world building, and I talk about how this lived in somebody's imagination, let's look at the disparities, the differences in outcomes in K-12 schools here in the United States. One of the main reasons that there's so many differences in the outcomes has nothing to do with the people who are educated at that school or who educated that school. There are systemic reasons why there are so many differences. One of those systemic reasons is that public education is largely funded by local property taxes. So if you are collecting one amount of property tax over here and another amount over here, then that means you're going to be funded at different levels. It's going to result in different outcomes and different levels. Does education aim to give children the best chance in life, improving their opportunities for upward social mobility, or are they simply prepared for the labor market according to their parents' social class? And we know that your parent status is a big predictor on life outcomes. Think about the curriculum. Which lessons are taught? Is the curriculum the same across the whole world, or does it differ by area or by individual school? Perhaps there are subjects that are forbidden and books that are no longer allowed in schools. So think about all the things that have happened in the past few years with Moms for Liberty and the book bannings and how much more prevalent they are today. How has this affected education in the lives of younger generations? Maybe these forbidden lessons are still taught at home or underground schools. Think about everything that's happened in Florida and them banning African American history from the AP curriculum. Is education compulsory? What are the consequences for not attending school? And do they befall the child, the parent, or both? What is the punishment for learning something you shouldn't be learning? Is education free? If it is, think about how it's funded. If not, think about who can afford it and what happens to those who can't. Are there scholarships to be won for particularly gifted children? And also, who decides who's gifted? Perhaps some talents are revered and celebrated while others are condemned and discouraged. So think about all of this. All of this goes into this world that we are building. So just like it goes into a fictional work, this has gone into the world that we inhabit today. Consider how education has changed over time and why and how this is evident across generations. Perhaps knowledge has been lost over time, considered outdated and no longer needed. Maybe new qualifications are available, offering younger people access to professions their predecessors did not have skills for. So think about all the developments in AI that have happened in just the past 2 to 3 months, and the access that we have through AI that we did not have 2 to 3 months ago. Think about that and how the world. So can you even imagine what the world looked like without these conversations 6 months ago? Can you imagine a world in which AI was just coming onto the mainstream scene about a year and a half ago? Can you even imagine what that world was? Your world may have specialist schools for skills such as magic, fighting, or dragon riding. Are places to these schools, are places in these schools given out on merit and aptitude? Perhaps places are inherited through a family line, have strict entrance exams, or maybe spaces in school come with a price tag. Education can push a person forward and help them succeed. It can give them opportunities their own parents never had, elevating each new generation. Or and this is the thing about world building, right? And don't take things for granted, because we tend to think in a very American way that progress is linear, that things only get better and better and better, and that there's never any regression. Inside the world you're creating, you have to deliberately account for progression, forward movement, advancement, because you cannot take that for granted. Or can it be used to exclude to maintain a strict class system? And we see lots of regression happening now. We're seeing lots of things being clawed back through the judiciary, through the courts, through the legislative branch, through the executive branch. Consider the role education plays in your world and what it offers in your characters, what it offers to your characters. So I really want you to think about this concept of world building, and that the world that you build, whether it's fictional or real life, is always a world in the making, always a world being created. There was a world that we thought we knew before the beginning of this year, and now there's the world that we know. And those are two very different worlds. I've been looking at a lot of matters surrounding educational funding and just the threats, the stick, the carrots and the sticks that come with educational funding from the federal government. And that has a profound impact on world building, that has a profound impact on the worlds that people can build. It even has a profound impact on the worlds that people can imagine themselves building. So I want you to take time to think about your role in world building. Think about what world building is for you. Think about who's there, who's involved. I also want to add here, as you think about things that you can build out for the future, try to resist the urge to try to do everything as mass production. That's the thing about, in a very American westernized way, we think about how we can produce at a grand scale. You don't have to do that. You can create to affect the people who are right around you, and have a huge impact on their lives. So think about world building. Let's talk about it. Please become a paid subscriber to the Substack. And there are other ways that you can be involved. You can like, you can comment, you can restack. Let's keep this conversation going. You'll hear more from me this week about world building. I'm excited about what you think about this and how you can add to the conversation. Thank you for being here.